Welcome back to another class popularity video. Today we're going to be discussing that I collected from Mischief TLP server. Mischief TLP was released on May 26, 2021, so it's over 2 years old, and it's currently on the Seeds of Destruction expansion, which is a level 85 expansion. I believe it's the expansion where mercenaries are released, so people are pretty stoked by this. By the time that most TLPs hit Seeds of Destruction, they're like long since dead. But because Mischief has that tradable random loot rule set, it still remains to this day the second most popular TLP by active population, which is active characters. So obviously there's a lot of boxers, so who knows how many real players are there. But the gap is so massive between the second and third server that it's safe to assume that it is still the second most played server by active players. The only server that's ahead of it is obviously Oakwind, which is the newest server currently in Scars of Velius. So before we begin, the expansion, like I said, is Seeds of Destruction, but I want to play a game here. Pause the video here and guess what you think is the most played class and what you think is the least played class. I did this on my last video. Some people were pretty close, some people were pretty far off, so you might be surprised. So go ahead and pause it and leave it in the comments below. If you feel kind of like embarrassed about your guess, you can go ahead and put like this is a guess, or I'm going to guess, and then put like the most played and least played classes. Okay, so hope you pause it, took time to at least guess below. Now in the last video I went through all the classes, which happened to be 14 because Berserker and Beast Lord weren't ready yet. I went through them one by one. Probably took longer than people wanted. So this time we're going to do it a little bit faster. I'm going to count down from 16 because the Beast Lord and Berserkers are obviously in Mischief at this point. So we'll go 16 to 6 and then I'll do the last 5 in a more official, slower manner. Also, for shits and giggles, why not pause the video again? And if you didn't leave a comment, or even if you left a comment, take a few more guesses. Try to guess the most played healer, most played tank, most played melee DPS, and the most played caster DPS. So pause again, leave it in the comments below. Here we go. Coming in at number 16, the least played class overall on Mischief server with just 3.1% of the population is the Wizard. So did you guess that one right? The Wizard, obviously, because it, like I said in my last video, it always is out of fucking mana. Ports aren't so much relevant, and like the only thing cool that they ever had was a teleport to bind. Maybe they're awesome on raids and really short fights where they can dump all their mana and the boss is and the mob's dead. But I really wish they would did something better with that class, even if the nukes were less and they allowed more mana regen or something. But that class needed to be fixed on TLP. I'm not sure what it is like on the live server because I have not played live. So coming in at number 15, the least played melee class on server with just 3.5% of the population is the Rogue. I bet that one's easy to guess. And at number 14, the least played tank class on the server with just 3.7% of the population. What do you think it is? This one's pretty easy to guess. So it's my main class that I play in my box groups, the Paladin. Yep, one of the least popular tanks throughout the entire game. Number 13, also with 3.7% of the population, but just a little bit more, like 3.71 or something, is the Necromancer. Number 12, with 3.8% of the population, the Beast Lord. Number 11 with 4.9% of the population is the Ranger. And at number 10 with 5.1% of the population, this one may or may not be surprising, but it's the Berserker. Number 9 with 5.7% of the population, the Magician. The Magician never really caught on Mischief like it did on the non-free trade servers because you can't really permacamp stuff. Like there's some things that only still drop off, like the rares and PHs. A lot of stuff's tradable, and a lot of the random loot you can actually get to similar drops or the same drops on other mobs of the same level, so other rares at the same level. So it's really hard for mages to crack down and farm a camp. They're still used to farm stuff, but they can't permacamp something. Number 8, also with 5.7% of the population, is the Druid. Druids are always more popular at the start due to like ports and power leveling, but once the Plane of Knowledge comes around, they're pretty much like just drop and play. Even in Planes of Power, it's hard to find them in your raid guilds. By the end of the Planes of Power, like the last guild I was in on Mischief, we were hurting for Druids. It'd be lucky if we had one come on. Sometimes you just have alts. I'm playing alt in the raid, but number 7 with 5.8% of the population is the Warrior. Still mainly used just for that, some raid tanking, but it is definitely not the most popular tank. Unlike on the TLPs when they first start out, Warriors are usually the highest of the tanks. Number 6 with 6.3% of the population is the Enchanter. Surprised that it's high, but not surprised it's high. It does have some good buffs and such, but as you go past Planes of Power, that charming stuff kind of fades out a little bit. But up till Planes of Power, they're just like immaculate for DPS. Charm DPS is amazing. So that is 16 through 6. Did any of that surprise you? So there are 5 classes left. We have the Monk, Shaman, Bard, Cleric, and Shadow Knight. Can you guess which class is number 1? And if you haven't left a comment yet, go ahead and pause the video right here and list what you think are numbers 1 through 5 of those remaining classes. Alrighty, the 5th most played class on the Mischief server with 7.4% of the population. Also the most heavily played tank in the game, Shadow Knight. Shadow Knight has always been a popular choice, but at this point in the game, it has a commanding lead as the most played tank, especially over the warrior and way over the paladin. Moving on, the 4th most played class on the Mischief server with 7.5% of the population is the Cleric. This was a little bit surprising to me. That means that the Cleric heal advantage, it kind of fades out down the line. Maybe it's replaced by Mercenaries at this point. Could be why it's so low. Compared to Oak, when Oakwind had 12% of the population as Clerics, and it was the most popular class on Oakwind. Probably some factors here that are making it less appealing, or less necessary, I should say. The 3rd most played class with 8% of the population is usually one of the most popular classes, no matter how you slice it, is the Monk. Also makes the Monk the most played melee DPS class, so if you guessed that, you are correct. And number 2 with 11.6% of the population, the Shaman. Shamans are essential in almost every 6-box group, which is what I think is happening here, especially why the SK population is so high. The high Shaman percentage is very indicative of a lot of 6-box groups. On Oakwind, the Shaman population was only at 8.4%. And coming in at number 1, your most played class with 14.1% of the population. For sure, sending a message that this server is dominated by 6-boxers is the Bard. A high Bard percentage has always been one way to tell if a server has a lot of boxers on it, because Bards are an essential class to box or play in every group. So the Bard population on Oakwind is at about 10.5%. You can see that this is significantly higher, and that's a good indication that a lot of people are boxing a Bard. So what did you think of the results? Was there anything surprising? I don't think many people are surprised that the Mischief server is being kept alive by a high percentage of multi-boxers. It's a good thing, I think. There are a lot of people who quit after a few expansions, especially after Planes of Power, and Mischief probably has the best chance in a long time of all TLPs to make it to the live server, so that's kind of exciting. If there's some boxers in there keeping alive, I can see why. A lot of people haven't actually got to play through without having to play by themselves. You know, maybe they quit and Gates Discord or Omens of War, something like that, or even Planes of Power. A lot of people haven't been able to take a TLP all the way to the end because the population just dies. There you have it, Mischief in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and leave a comment if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. We got P99, we got TLP, we got private servers and tests that's free. Some of us pay, some of us don't, some of us play, some of us won't. Did you just break my mess? Did you just train me? Did you just miss a healing? Are you gonna rest me? And please I need a sow, and please I need a rest. Please I need that sword, I'll take what you got.